You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. Now I'm going to be talking in the studio with Andy from Kent Fire Rescue, part of the regular slot I do with Andy. And as always, it's great to have you back.
Good evening, Daniel. Sorry, this is a planned event, and obviously the timings of my interview here this evening. Obviously, we will have all seen the horrific events on the TV regarding the Grenfell Tower fire in London. Our thoughts go out to all of those affected, and I'm sure people have been watching the TV, and it's brought home the devastating effects that fire can have in a home. Well, it would be inappropriate for me to comment on the specifics of the incident. This fire was unprecedented, and so we do have deep feelings for all of those affected and all our colleagues in London who worked in really difficult conditions to deal with this tragic incident. I think Kent has an agreement with London and our neighbouring fire authorities to send resources where required, but on this occasion London Fire Brigade requested the use of our drone to assist at the scene. So it might be just prevalent to sort of during this time just to think about fire safety in your own home. You can see the speed which fire can spread, and although this was unprecedented, it just goes to show how dangerous fire can be. So the purpose of my interview is we'll just have a few tips. If any of you viewers have got questions they want to ask, there are sort of a lot of fire safety resources out there, and hopefully we can answer your questions. So we'll talk about some specifics in a minute, but while the next tune is on, sort of perhaps just have a think about safety in your own home, and we'll go through a few tips after the next song.
I know, Andy, you want to cover a bit about general safety, especially as we're coming up to or in the summer now. Yeah,
gorgeous weather out there, isn't it? 30 odd degrees today. It's bring on the barbecue time, I think. Unfortunately, I have to not put a damper on things, but barbecues can be fun. Get cooking outside. Get the old dads out with their tongs. They are the master of the barbecue. If you are getting your barbecue out for the first time, though, I'd say just check it, especially if it's a gas barbecue. We've already had a few instances this year of the gas barbecues coming out of the garage, out the shed, and the gas hoses have perished, which does allow gas to escape at low pressure, and unfortunately if it comes in contact with the burners underneath, it can spread down the hose, and 2 instances so far this year it's spread to the gas bottle itself. A lot of gas now comes in the lightweight glass reinforced plastic cylinders, which will tend to melt. You have a liquid inside, so what would you do if one of these caught fire? Move everybody away, place of safety out in the front garden, call 999. It's the easiest way. Just get the fire brigade out and we'll come and deal with the incident, give clear directions of where you are, exactly what's alight. We may not be able to save you sausages, but we'll get there and we'll deal with the fire. So the worst thing you can do is actually get there and say try and tackle the fire yourself if it's a large one, because it could grow in size fairly rapidly. So not all barbecues are gas, of course. Some people like the old charcoal barbecues. So we think about where you're siting them. Obviously the obvious ones, away from fences, away from overhanging trees. Obviously you need to think about your wind direction before you light your barbecue, because you don't want to have to move it when it's hot, because that's a bit dangerous. And think about the fuel you're using. Unfortunately, people don't always have the specific barbecue lighter fluid to hand, which is designed for barbecues, and they try to use something a little bit more flammable. It can only end one way, unfortunately, which is, can lead in flash burns to people if it's used inappropriately. So if you're having your barbecue in your confines of your garden, we've covered, obviously it's pretty safe, you know the area, but what if you're having one out and about? We sort of just ask people to be a little bit conscious of the people around them, where they're having a barbecue, especially the disposable barbecues. So think about the ground that you're putting it on. Try and put it on some solid ground that's not grass covered, sort of a stony area. And think about the safety of when you've cooked your food. These barbecues stay hot for a very long time. So if you're planning on taking a barbecue out with you, especially a disposable one, think about also packing like a 2 litre bottle of water, so you can safely put it out before you move on. A lot of fires are started where people dispose of their barbecue and they're still hot, and it can set waste bins alight, or if people bury them in stones, the heat transfer is immense and people will burn their feet if they walk over them. Seems silly, but people do. It's a lot of common sense stuff, and just sort of thinking, be safe, have fun, try and refrain from drinking until you've had the barbecue, the person that's in charge of the cooking. And it's time for the family to have fun. Be safe when you've got children around, and just be responsible when you're having barbecues.
And I know you next want to cover summer driving.
Yes, Daniel. I mean, I work on the island, live on the island, so I'm sort of work at Sheppey Fire Station. And although we don't have a lot of large accidents and driving on the island, we are a fire and rescue service, and an increasing amount of our work is road based, so on road accidents and things like that. So the island itself is a lot busier in the summer, and we sort of we find that there's a lot more distractions about, where people are more prone to have little accidents, and we just want to try and get people to think and be prepared. A vehicle preparation in the summer, you don't tend to sort of clean your lights as much because there's no salt on the road, is there? So we all look after our vehicles in the winter, make sure all our tyres are good, but you need to continue this through the summer. So before you're going on a long journey or once a week, we sort of ask people to sort of make sure they've prepped their vehicle. Sort of check the oil, check your washer bottles are still full. There's a lot of dust on the road, you still will need to clean your windscreen, and the last thing you want is to run out of water on the way. So sort of really pay attention to your vehicle and your tyre pressures as well. Hot road surfaces, it's important that your tyres are the correct tyre pressure. Don't overload your car when you're going on holiday. We find squeeze as much into a car as you possible on a long journey. People are uncomfortable, it leads to distraction. So let's just sort of think about any alternatives, perhaps hiring a bigger car for the week. But it's really important that you can see all round and you don't stack it to the roof. You've still got full visibility when you're driving, and towing vehicles as well. Some people may not be familiar with towing caravans. Narrow roads, it's easy to misjudge and cause an accident. So we are a tourist destination, and we have got a lot of campsites with us. We've got a lot of narrow roads, very busy, and there's loads of roadworks around, isn't there, at the moment? So I heard your advert in the break there about thinking about the workforce that are working in the road when you're driving through them. No, it's an inconvenience if you are delayed. Unfortunately, the workforce are there to do a job, and they have they have the right to do it safely. So when you're driving through roadworks, have a bit of respect for the workforce in the road, and take a bit of care. Treat them as if you were driving past a horse. Give them room, and give them space. Give them time to react in case something happens. So we talked about distraction. There's a lot of distractions. You may have your windows open if you're not fortunate to have air conditioning. So the more people in the car if you're going away on a day out. So it's easy to become distracted, especially if you're driving close to the car in front. Just try and maintain your thoughts on the road. The biggest distraction is mobile phones, so the easiest thing is to switch it off before you get in the car. If the call's that important, the person will ring back. So it's all too tempting to just see who's calling on your phone. But the fines have gone up, and unfortunately we still see a lot of people using their mobile phones while they're driving. So not just cars, it's lorries. People are using them, and we would urge you not to. This is the biggest causer of road crashes. Kent Fire and Rescue attend around 1,000 every year, and some of these can be horrific. Small crashes, a big strong car against a little car can cause horrific damage, horrific inconvenience. And along with my message that I gave in the winter, the teenagers, so the parents out there, need to make sure their teenagers are safe. They're not overloading their cars when they're coming back. And young male drivers aged 17 to 20, statistics are they're 7 times more at risk than other male drivers between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. and the risk is 17 times higher. So their statistics, their official statistics. My advice is get a taxi that time of the morning. So drinking is an absolute no-no. Not even one. It's all too tempting to have a nice cold beer, but remember you're driving. So those are the things if you're driving. You've got other road users. We talked about the workforces in the road. Think bike. That's the other one. There's a lot of motorbikes out there. We do our best to be seen. I am a motorcyclist myself. So the motorcyclists should have their headlights on. They do their best to be seen. So give them space as well. We do. The motorcyclists do tend to sort of cut through traffic, but do have respect, because unfortunately bikes don't play as much against gravity and they fall over sometimes.
We are at the moment joined in the studio with Andy, all as part of our regular slot with Kent Fire and Rescue. Andy from the Sheppey Fire Station. I know you next wanted to talk about grass fires, which I imagine is more risky in this warm weather. Yeah,
as the warm weather continues, hopefully it's going to continue for more than a couple of weeks. We do have an increasing amount of grass fires. The warmer it gets, the bigger the grass fires. So a lot of our work is taken up in the summer with chasing grass fires, and these produce a lot of smoke. Now, being an organic material when it's burning, although it smells horrible and it's difficult to breathe, doesn't contain all the noxious chemicals. So we would still advise people to keep their windows and doors shut if they are close to a large grass fire. And we would urge people to perhaps sign up to the Twitter feeds from Kent Fire and Rescue, because they give information about large fires as it's happening. You can sign up and the alerts come out to keep your windows and doors shut. We do live in a rural area. There are a lot of arable fields around us, a lot of crops growing. There's a lot of open areas of grass and marshland, and because of the mild spring we've had, the grass has sort of grown quite nicely, and soon it'll all be drying out. So what we would urge people to do is sort of take on the tips that I gave in the barbecue fire section. Take extra care. Don't drop your cigarette butts on the floor, because it only takes one small spark to start a large fire. And the things with these is you've no guarantee of the direction of the wind. When we have a large grass fire, this creates its own drafts and winds, updrafts, and it could turn around and come behind you. So if you are caught in sort of grass fire, it's just get out the way, call the fire brigade out. I mean, we have the resources to come and deal with it. We're not talking anything on the magnitude of what's going on in Portugal at the moment. Again, real sad loss of life. But we have events that destroyed large amounts of our nature and our grassland. Started carelessly, could be, or started deliberately. So we do go into schools and we try and educate children about the dangers. There are horrific firefighter injuries that have happened in Kent through firefighters tackling grass fires. Life-changing injuries, because they are very difficult and arduous fires to put out. So we're thinking, we're just asking people to be mindful. If you are having a bonfire in your garden, be aware that sparks fly and they can travel a fair distance. If they land on an area of dry grass or the neighbour's garden, timber's dry, it can easily spread. So try and think of alternative ways of getting rid of your waste, garden waste that is, rather than burning it, because it can have quite horrific consequences if it does spread quite fast. While we're on this, another area that we urge people to be careful of in the summer is water safety. And not going in a massive area, but a lot more of our incidents now are water related. Kent Fire and Rescue has the ability to deal with people in difficulty in rivers, lakes, and we just sort of, in this hot weather, it's all too tempting to go and take a dip in an area you're unfamiliar with. Just be careful, the water could be far deeper than you think. The sea is still very cold, and quick cause cramp and breathing, and could be lots of debris underneath. So we're just saying that don't jump or dive in, and never swim near any weirs or locks, as there's often dangerous currents. So just be careful. Go to a lifeguarded beach if possible, where there's someone sort of watching, and be safe.
We were next going to cover some general fire safety advice.
Yes, Daniel. I mean, I believe you had a question from one of your listeners regarding a fire in a high-rise building. My understanding is they live in a 3-storey property. That's not actually classed as a high-rise. High-rise buildings are sort of generally 6 floors and above, of which we only have 1 on the island. So if you are in a 3-storey property, obviously there is, and you're on the top floor, there is obviously further to go to your final exit. Now your primary lifeline is having your working smoke alarm, as in any property. So make sure you've got one on every level. I don't know whether your listener's in a flat or anything, so I haven't got a lot of detail. But what I can do, if your listeners can just get a pen, I will give you a phone number in a minute that she can ring for tailored advice to her circumstances. So if you're in a rented property, it's the duty of your landlord to provide you with a working smoke alarm, and it's down to the tenant to ensure that that remains working. So that law came into effect in 2014 by now, so all landlords should sort of comply with the provision of smoke alarms in their properties. If you're in a small block of flats with other tenants, let's try talking to each other, and make sure you keep your escape routes clear. Yeah, the landlord will be responsible for the communal areas, but all the groups of tenants in the block can ensure that the escape route is kept clear, and perhaps sort of think about whether you could take a different route. So planning and practice. So think ahead, make an escape plan so that you and everyone in your home knows what to do in the event of a fire. Take everyone into account when making your plan, so any older people, children, disabled who may need extra help in getting out. Don't go back for possessions, just make sure you get yourself out. Don't try and tackle the fire. We would ask that you close the door if possible to the room that's affected. Get out and get the fire brigade out. That's the 3 things you need to remember. So plan your escape route in the normal way. Plan a different escape route if you can. Make sure you know where your keys to any doors and windows are. So we have to balance security and being able to exit the property in an emergency. So keep your routes clear. So this is in houses as well. 2-storey houses, 3-storey houses. Keep all your routes clear of anything that may hinder your escape. Furniture, rubbish, clothing, bikes. The biggest things you will not see them once the place fills with smoke. Your smoke alarm will give you an early warning of fire, so you should be able to get out of your property unhindered, but you need to make sure that it's working. So if you have visitors to your property, people may be staying over, just make sure that they're familiar with your property and that you have the working smoke alarms as well. So, we have, as parents are moving their children into student accommodation, moving on, that's going to be a few months away before they start. But, this is the first time that your children may be living away. So just prep up and make sure they have a sense of fire safety as well. Maybe the first time they have to fend for themselves with cooking. A lot of these places have very strict rules and are very well maintained. So just, make sure the stuff that you give them is safe, and they can pick up some advice from our website as well. So if you need fire safety advice, we have a free phone number that you can call, as well as information on the website. So the free phone number is 0800 923 7000. I'll repeat that, that's 0800 923 7000. Or you can go to our website, which is www.kent.fire-uk.org, or just go onto a search engine and you'll pick us up. Facebook, Twitter, all have links to Kent Fire and Rescue website. Or if you're passing through Chatham at the weekend, Medway Fire Station, which is the brand new fire station on next to the old one on Watling Street at the top of Chatham Hill. So it's Chatham Fire Station now, not Medway Fire Station. Chatham are having their open day, so you can pop along and see the safety team there, and get some one-to-one advice, and just see what Kent Fire and Rescue have to offer. So, best of all, I'll just ask you to be safe, have fun, but respect that fire is dangerous, and I'll speak to you shortly before winter.
And as always, thank you very much for coming along. We look forward to your next visit. That is Andy from Kent Fire and Rescue, the Sheppey Fire Station, here at BRFM on the Monday Night Community Show, all as part of the regular slot that I do with him.